Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank you all for joining in today's event, which is a Tarbiyyat forum being organized by Qiadat Tarbiyyat of Majlis Ansarullah UK. It is our tradition that we start every important program with the recitation from the Holy Quran. So I would request Zafrullah Chaudhry Ahmadi Sahib to present a portion from the Quran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن آياته أن خلقكم من تراب ثم إذا أنتم بشر تنتشرون ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. جزاكم الله.
Jazakumullah Zafrullah Sahib. Now I would request Krishan Ahmed BT Sahib for the translation of this verse.
Jazakallah Muhammad Sahib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The Quranic verses just recited are from Surah Aram, chapter 30, verses 21 and 22, and the translation is as follows. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. And of His signs is that He created you from dust. Then behold, you are men, spreading over the earth. And of His signs is that He has created wives for you from among yourselves, that you may find peace of mind in them, and He has put love and tenderness between you. In that surely are signs for a people who reflect. Jazakallah.
Jazakumullah Zafrullah Sahib and Krishan Sahib for presenting the tilawat and its translation. Allah bless both of you. Dear brothers and sisters, before we get started, I would again like to express my sincere appreciation, all of you who are attending the Tarbiyyat forum today. As most of the Ansar brothers know it very well, that Majlis Ansarullah organizes many events and Tarbiyyat forums in Majalis and different regions up and down the country. And in these forums, we try to discuss the teachings of Islam and the guidance of Quran, Hadith, and the guidance given by the Promised Messiah Islam and his successors on a host of Tarbiyyat issues. And today's event, which is being organized at national level, is graced by respected Ataul Mujib Rashid Sahib, Missionary in Charge UK, who will be delivering the keynote address at the end, inshallah. Jazakumullah Imam Sahib for joining. And today's event was going to be chaired by respected Dr. Chaudhry Ijazur Rahman Sahib, Sadr Majlis Ansarullah UK, but unfortunately, because of an unforeseen engagement, he had to apologize. So without further ado, I would start the program. I would humbly request Haider Hamid Sahib to present a brief introduction to today's event. Haider Sahib serves as additional Qaid Tarbiyyat in Majlis Ansarullah UK Zamla. Haider Sahib.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I am very honored to both welcome you and introduce this Tarbiyyat forum, which has been organized by Qiadat Tarbiyyat of Majlis Ansarullah UK. The theme of this Tarbiyyat forum is on marriage. And for the next 1 hour, we hope to share with you 3 speeches from our very learned scholars on various topics, various aspects of this topic, which I'm certain the whole family will find very informative. Since being recommended at Majlis Shura, Ansarullah UK have been holding regional and local Tarbiyyat forums on this topic across the UK in order to assist in this field of work. Our beloved Hazur, may Allah be his helper, has already shared so much wisdom on various topics relating to marriage and in finding a partner. We have put together some short-sized videos, short bite-sized videos, which can now be accessed by visiting the Ansarullah UK's website, ansar.org.uk/Rishtanata, where you'll find just under 50 videos providing guidance on almost every aspect of this topic. And I recommend that you all visit this webpage after the event, as it will also help you to answer any questions that you have. As way of an introduction to this Tarbiyyat forum, our first speaker, who is a student studying at Jamia, Hazim Arif Sahib, will be talking about the role of parents in finding a suitable match for their children. Our second speaker, Ataul Momin Zahid Saab, a missionary and a professor at Jamia, shall be talking about how to lead a happy marriage. And as you know, our final keynote speaker, Imam Ataul Mujib Rashid Sahib, Missionary in Charge UK, shall be talking about the importance of marriage, its benefits and blessings. After the conclusion of the speeches, there will be a 10 to 15 minute opportunity to ask questions on this topic, which you can do by typing your questions in the chat window. We will then aim to answer as many of these as we can within this time. I very much hope that you find this event both informative and enlightening, and pray that Allah showers you and your families with partners that are the delight of your eyes. Jazakallah.
Jazakumullah Haider Sahib. As introduced by Haider Sahib, the first speaker today is Hazim Arif Sahib, who is a senior Jamia student. And he will be talking about the role of parents in finding a rishta of their children, for their children. From the viewpoint of a young person who has grown up in the Western society, this is going to be a very interesting talk, I hope. So I would request Hazim Arif Sahib.
Assalamu alaikum. Auzubillah minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Jazakallah, respected Momin Sahib and Haider Sahib, for the introduction. And when I was first asked to give this talk, the question I asked myself was like, why is a 24-year-old being asked to talk to, I'm sure, well-seasoned and well-respected members of the Ansarullah, Majlis Ansarullah, about the role of parents in marriage? But then I realized it could be quite beneficial, especially coming from a young person who has been to school, had my primary education here, my secondary education here, to hear from the viewpoint of someone who's grown up in this Western society, because I'm sure that I've had many of the same experiences as your children, your sons and daughters have and are having in their day-to-day lives. So just to start off my talk, I first want to draw your attention to the Hadith, which states that stating why marriage is important, because it completes half of your faith. And just to delve a little bit more into what this could mean, is that marriage is so important to guarding your spirituality and allowing your spiritual self to progress, and allowing your relationship with Allah to progress. Because you look around in our society, we can look at school, in the media, on TV shows and movies and the news. Everywhere there is a narrative, there is a viewpoint which is being pushed onto our children and our teenagers of what a marriage looks like, or what a relationship should look like. And this is quite damaging to the psyche, to the mindset and views of young people. So in order to kind of guard yourself from these things which we see in society, marriage is really important to kind of guard yourself and block yourself off from those things, to allow yourself to grow further towards Allah the Almighty. And just touching upon again upon the point of how our youngsters and our young people within our Jamaat, they are all going to the same schools and they're having the same experiences. They're talking to the same people who are drowned in these kinds of practices, where dating and where lewd and acts and promiscuity and immorality is running rife, right before our very eyes. They are being exposed to these things right from the very precepts of education. So there are a lot of questions, and there are expectations and desires which end up growing in the mind and in the minds of these young people within our Jamaat, which is now kind of links into my topic of how parents can help with this state of affairs and with this situation with our young people. So, I mean, the role of parents essentially is to start early, starting early with the upbringing of children. So right from the right from the birth, in fact, is to always kind of hone in and emphasize the importance of having trust in Allah the Almighty, and to set your priorities straight with making every one of your actions to please Allah the Almighty, and to build a relationship so that your pleasures are met with prayer, and that everything that you do is to serve God and to make the lives of those around you better. Now, when these views and these habits are instilled from a very young age, it becomes a lot easier as when they become teenagers, and when they enter the ages of maturity and begin to think about finding a suitable match and a rishta. Their views are very much in line with what Islam teaches and requires you to find a good match. So that's the really important point to mention, is that the parents' role in finding a rishta for their children starts from even before their birth, and right from their birth until that age of when they're looking for a match. So, I mean, another really important point to remember is that a good upbringing is really important, but at the same time, setting a good example is also equally as important. It's quite foolish to expect your children to have the correct expectations and the correct outlook when it comes to finding a rishta, if at home we are not practicing those same things which we want our children to practice, if we're not treating our spouses with the respect they deserve, if we're not giving them their due rights, if we're not showing the benevolence that we should be to our husbands or to our wives at home in our families, then it's foolish to kind of expect our children to implement these qualities and these characteristics within their own lives. So that's also a really important thing to remember. And for example, if arguments do arise at home, it's really important that we keep those arguments in a private setting where our children aren't exposed to those kinds of things. So it's really important to keep our children kind of guarded from these kinds of issues or these problems, these temporary problems that can crop up in a marriage, so that they can be given a good example, a good kind of an example of what a healthy marriage looks like, so that when they go out to look for a rishta, when they begin that journey towards finding a suitable match for themselves, they have a good example set before them, which they've seen for the entirety of their lives. So setting a good example is a really important factor for children and for your children who have reached a mature age when it comes to finding their potential spouse or their future life partner. Now, just one point, another point I want to mention is that the parent's job is not to force, it's to guide. And so, I mean, I've, speaking to some people, they have gone through experiences where their parents have their heart set very kind of strongly on someone, and their child is quite adverse to this, and they want to go forward with it. It's really important to kind of strike that balance between forcing and guiding. There is a difference between an arranged marriage and a forced marriage. An arranged marriage is far different to a forced marriage, and that is a difference which needs to be made more open and more kind of explicable to the children. That an arranged marriage, it does rely solely on the choice of your children, and it's not by force of the parents. And so when it comes to finding a rishta, the parents can by all means guide. They can by all means put forward good suggestions and strike a working balance with the children, and allow a conversation to spark up with the children, and not just have a one-way stream of proposals and then not listening to your children's wishes. And so once you strike that balance, then the children will start to respect certain decisions, certain proposals, because they know that there is a two-way kind of a street. They know that that you're respecting their choices and their views and their opinions, and likewise they're respecting your views and opinions. So it's really important to kind of strike that balance between in your conversations with your children with regards to finding a rishta. And just coming away from that point, I mean, sometimes it can be it can feel that your children have grown up in this society. They've gone to secondary school, and they've been exposed to these vices and to these practices within our society, where dating is seen as a common thing. That even if you don't date, you're looked down upon by society. That it's not normal to not date. But once our children have reached that stage where they've been so far kind of impressed upon by these views from they've seen from school and from the media, that they too want to find a possible match or find a possible rishta through dating, through living with that partner first, or through experiencing that partner before they make that final decision. So in a situation like this, as I said before, the main thing is to not create a stigma or a kind of to kind of remove the taboo behind all this conversation. You should make it known to your children that it's okay to ask questions, because they've grown up in a society where they're seeing all of these things, and they're hearing one thing from home, they're hearing one thing from the mosque, and they're hearing a completely different teaching, a completely different worldview from school. And these conflicts start to rise up within their heads. And if you don't allow your children to openly ask about these problems and these issues, and to discuss these issues, and to help them relinquish these issues and these causes from concern in their heads, these conflicts within their minds will fester and grow. And it will create such a barrier between them and what is right, between what is wrong. And they'll start to kind of be confused and go down wrong pathways. So in order to avoid that, it's really important to keep the conversation open, to allow your children to know that if they have any issues or problems from school, if they have any questions about marriage, any questions about things they've been seeing or hearing at school, you should be open and allow them to know that it's okay to ask these questions, and allow them to know that it's you can come to us for anything. That is a really important aspect, I feel, to have for a parent to have for their children, is to allow them to know that they can talk to you about anything. Because once they have that kind of that recourse, that way in which they can discard these wrong viewpoints, these wrong things they've been hearing from school and from the Western society, then it becomes easier to discard these conflicts and to resolve these conflicts, and to drive them towards the middle course, which is the teachings of Islam and what Islam requires for an ideal Ahmadi Muslim to create a strong relationship and find a suitable rishta. So, the main point from that being is to don't promote them to bottle up their feelings. It's okay to let those feelings out so they can resolve those feelings and resolve those issues. And the main qualities for that is to always be patient and always be understanding, and most importantly, be compassionate. Because I'm sure as parents, you yourselves have, I'm sure, been through these experiences yourself when you were younger. So it's important to be compassionate and put yourselves in your children's shoes, because that is a really important aspect to building that bridge between yourselves and your children. And it's just as hard for your children to approach you as it is for you to approach them with these conversations. So that is an important point to remember. And just coming on to the hadith, which I'm sure we've all heard and we are going to hear during this forum, is that, I'll quote the hadith in English, is that a woman is married for 4 things, i.e. her wealth, her family status, her beauty, and her religion. So you should marry the religious woman, otherwise you will all be losers. So this is a stark reminder for all Muslims in the world, especially in our Western society, that all of these things are important. So looking at the wealth is I'm sure is important, at the family status and at her beauty. These are all aspects which shouldn't be discarded. No one is telling your children to discard these aspects, but the main thing is to look for someone who's religious. And once that is that kind of viewpoint is established within the minds of your children, then it becomes a lot easier to find your rishta, find a suitable rishta. And so these viewpoints that children get from school, they think that, they think that dating is the way to go. And arranged marriage, they have this confusion that arranged marriage means forced marriage. And as I said before, it's really important for the parent to remove those misconceptions of arranged marriage being a forced marriage, and to explain to them that arranged marriage is solely your choice as well. It is down to your choice, and it is down to your trust in Allah the Almighty. It is not the parent imposing a rishta on the children, and they have no choice but to accept that proposal. But what Islam is saying, that you do have a choice, but you must look for someone who is pious. Also bearing in mind the other qualities of her wealth, her family status, and her beauty. And there is one analogy which I found really kind of useful, is that if you look at a relationship between a partner as a triangle, so like a triangle, so the bottom left side is the husband and the right side is the wife, and as long as they keep their objective as to pleasing God, which is the top of the triangle, as long as that's their objective, and they move towards God and they do things to please God, they will move closer to each other. This is a really important factor to remember, is that God should be at the forefront of every decision you make. And once that is, then you will, no doubt find someone who will complement you as a person and will allow you to live a very happy life and to prosper as a Muslim. And just moving on to the most important point, which is prayer. And as I said before, instilling within your children the qualities of having trust in God the Almighty and having full recourse to God the Almighty, that through every decision, every big decision, every small decision you make, you should always ask and seek God's guidance. And once that quality is instilled within your children right from the very young age, then when it comes to finding that ishta at the time of maturity, it becomes a lot easier when they're looking for an ishta. Their hearts are more receptive to good, pious proposals, and it becomes a lot of an easier affair finding an ishta for your children. And I'm sure we may have all seen the interview between Amir Safri Sahib, who's the editor of the Review of Religions magazine, and Hazrat Khalifa Masih V, may Allah be his helper, in finding the perfect life partner. And Huzur stated that dating is obviously the norm within our society. But he mentioned a really important point, is that over 60% of marriages which were based on love, they end up in divorce. That's a massive number. Over 60% of marriages which were based upon love and dating end up in divorce, which really shows us the importance of finding someone who is pious and following the Islamic way. Just to conclude my speech, in light of Huzur's guidance in that interview, I want to quote a philosopher by the name of Alain de Botton, he's a non-Muslim British philosopher, but he mentioned a really important thing of what love is. And he said that many people believe that love is just an instinct, but it's not. It's a skill, and it's a skill that needs to be learned. And it's a skill that our society refuses to consider as a skill. We are meant to believe that we need only to follow our feeling, he said. But if you keep following your feelings, you will almost certainly make a big mistake in your life. We start off with idealization, and we end up often with denigration. The person goes from absolutely marvelous to being absolutely terrible. We've been told that the way to find a good partner is to follow our heart and stop reasoning and analyzing. The problem is that we live in a romantic culture that privileges impulse over rationalizing what is right and what will be harmful in the near future. So I really appreciate everyone for listening to this talk, and I hope it's been beneficial to hear from a young person. And I look forward to hearing what the other speakers have to talk about today. So Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullah Azim Sahib. I'm sure everyone in attendance would have had something to take from your thoughts and from your views. And it was a very interesting perspective, actually, because normally we hear from parents and from older generation, talking about the role of parents in guiding their children for searching a suitable match. But this was an interesting perspective to see how young children or young people see their children in the guiding role in search of a suitable rishta or a suitable match. So Jazakumullah for your thoughts. And now I have also been asked to say something on an important aspect related to the topic of rishta nata and marriage. And the topic which was given to me was how to lead a happy married life. So I will now share my thoughts and my humble submissions on the given topic. As we know that it is the beauty of Islam that it provides complete guidance for all aspects of our daily lives. And we find that the instructions regarding marriage are also very comprehensive in both the Quran and Hadith. And also, we find plenty of guidance in the writings and sayings of the promised Messiah ﷺ and his successors. So marriage is such an important institution which lays the foundations of the family, and healthy families with happy married lives are required for the preservation of human race. And for this reason, Islam has laid great emphasis on preserving the sanctity of this blessed institution. We've just heard Hazim Arif Sahib, who mentioned the hadith, in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ advised that if you want to lead happy married lives, then choose your life partners wisely and give preference to those who are pious and righteous. Fasfir bezat ad-din taribat yadak. These are the exact words of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So righteousness or taqwa, these are the key things which are required. These are the words which we all are very familiar with, and the Holy Quran is replete with the mention of the word taqwa. And it is very interesting to note that in the nikah sermon alone, which is traditionally read before the nikah ceremony or in the nikah ceremony, the word taqwa is mentioned 5 times. So in other words, we can say that the new couples, Muslim new couples, they are advised 5 times to adopt taqwa at the very start of their new married lives. And this signifies the importance of adopting taqwa within marriage and tells us that if we want to lead a happy married life, then taqwa is the key. So in other words, if we adopt all the virtues and avoid sins and follow the instructions of Quran and Hadith and follow the teachings of Islam, then we will be able to take care of our familial relations, and we will be able to fulfill our relationship dues in the best possible manner. And not only the married couples will reap the benefits by leading a happy married life, but the blessings will be far reaching, and the children will also lead happy lives. So this is the first thing to remember according to the teachings of Islam, taqwa. Another key thing to remember is that Islam views marriage as an equal partnership between two people. And through this equal partnership, we can also gain the pleasure of Allah through mutual cooperation, through trust and respect, and through faithfulness between husband and wife. So mutual respect and cooperation are essential. And according to the teachings of Islam, to produce a good relationship between husband and wife, Allah the Almighty states, Allah the Almighty has given a beautiful guidance. And He says, they are a garment for you and you are a garment for them. Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahunna. So now the Holy Quran has actually likened the husband and wife as a garment for each other or a clothing for each other. Now clothing is worn for different reasons, for protection, for adornment, or for hiding one's nakedness. And in the same way, man and woman should protect each other's honor and morals and make each other feel secure with love, support, and understanding. And in other words, the Holy Quran has also advised us that husband and wives should keep the secrets of each other, and they should not air each other's shortcomings in public. So this is another key guidance which is given in the Quran. And expounding upon this wise method, our beloved Imam Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasril Aziz stated, he said, the Holy Quran expounds the uses of garment as a source of covering nakedness, secondly, as a source of embellishment, and thirdly, as a protection from hot and cold weather. Thus, when a man and a woman commit themselves to the union of marriage in accordance with a pact, their utmost effort should be to accept each other and also cover each other's shortcomings. Men should not become infuriated upon petty matters, and neither should women. Rather, Ahmadi married couples should maintain such a bond that complements one another with the beauty of this relationship. Such elegance should be seen within Ahmadi married couples that becomes an example for others. So this beautiful guidance which is given in the Quran about this is a beautiful guidance which is given in the Quran about leading happy married lives. Another beautiful commandment in this regard, which is given by Allah the Almighty, addressing both husbands and wives, is that God Almighty stated in Surah At-Tahrim, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu Qu anfusakum wa ahlikum naran. O ye who believe, save yourselves and save your families from fire. Now, of course, there is an obvious interpretation of this verse that all the believers They should try to save themselves and save their families from the fire of sin and disobedience to Allah. This is a very obvious interpretation. But there is another interpretation as well, and that is that Allah has commanded us, all believers, husbands and wives, that they should always try to maintain harmony, peace, and concord in their houses. And they should try to create such atmosphere which saves them from the fire of disagreements and conflicts. And God Almighty has advised us that if we do not heed to this advice and we continue to quarrel on petty disagreements, we will make our homes a kind of fire for ourselves and for our children as well. On one occasion, Hazur Anwar Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz stated, I have observed that children of such homes where parents do not have a loving relationship mostly find comfort outside their homes. Therefore, I will also say to the parents not to ruin the peace of the homes because of their personal egos and petty wishes, and ultimately ruin their children. Then on another occasion, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz stated, when I hear about conflicts where minor disagreements lead to breakups, I'm always reminded of a story of a young girl who gave an excellent lesson to a young couple. Here, Hazur actually narrated a kind of short anecdote or a story of a young Ahmadi girl who basically saw a married couple who were arguing or fighting or speaking to each other with raised voices in anger. And that young girl, Hazur stated, was so astonished to see the spectacle that she kept staring at them. And the couple noticed this, and they asked the girl, what was the matter? And they asked, have you not seen your mother or your father quarrel? Do they not get angry? And upon that, Hazur stated that the girl replied to that couple that yes, they do get angry at times, but when my mother becomes angry, my father keeps quiet. And when my father becomes angry on something, my mother keeps quiet. They never have such argument where they both are shouting in raised voices. And after narrating this short story, Hazur stated and said, thus, tolerance needs to be adopted. At times, trivial matters cause breakups very early on. Only a few days after the wedding, the couple maintains that there has been no meeting of hearts between them. Although the marriage takes place between them after many months or years of betrothal. And Hazur states, identifying the main issue behind the disagreements in married life, Hazur states, the main issue is that when the couple are not discreet about each other and divulge information, it results in outsiders making erroneous suggestions to them. So there, Hazur Anwar Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Aziz has again pointed to the same guidance of the Quran which I earlier stated. Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahunna. They are a garment for you and you are a garment for them. So Hazur Anwar has beautifully pointed out the same guidance of the Quran and touched upon this very important topic in a beautiful manner. So as I earlier stated and mentioned another verse of the Quran as well from Surah At-Tahrim, in which Allah mentions domestic agreements and tells the believers to save themselves and their families from the fire. And as I said that, of course, the verse has a broader connotation and meaning, where the verse would mean that all the believers should try to follow the teachings of Quran and save themselves from the fire of the hereafter. But in the context of married lives, the verse would mean that husbands and wives should try to save themselves and their families from the fire of disagreements and discord. I would, I know that the time is short, so I would conclude my submissions on an advice given by the promised Messiah ﷺ. And this advice is particularly given to men and husbands. Of course, Islam's the injunctions and the teachings of Islam are for both husbands and wife, but this particular advice, which I'm going to mention at the end, is particularly for the husbands. And Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, the promised Messiah ﷺ, stated in Urdu, and this is from Malfuzat, and he said, "Fahsha ke alawa baki tamam kaj khulkiyan aur talkhiyan auraton ki bardasht karni chahiye." In other words, Hazur stated that apart from indecency, all the other improprieties and discourteous behaviors of your wives should be tolerated with patience. So this is a beautiful advice given by the promised Messiah ﷺ to husbands. And I'm sure if all the husbands start following this advice, then of course this would present such a good example for their wives as well, and they would follow, of course, the behavior of their husbands, and this would create a harmonious atmosphere in houses and in homes. And again, the same extract that I wanted to present at the end, it is, as I said, it is from Malfuzat. So it is mentioned in Malfuzat that once on a certain occasion, it was mentioned to the promised Messiah ﷺ that a certain individual from the Jamaat, he uses harsh tongue or he uses foul language for his wife. And a complaint was made to the promised Messiah ﷺ about an individual and how he treats his wife in a harsh manner. And upon listening to this, the promised Messiah ﷺ was deeply grieved. And he said that our friends must not be as such. The promised Messiah ﷺ, Malfuzat says that the promised Messiah ﷺ then continued to discuss how men should live lovingly with their wives. And in the end, he stated, "As for me, I will read the Urdu as well." Hazur stated, "मेरा ये हाल है कि एक दफा मैंने अपनी बीवी पर आवाज़ा कसा था और मैं महसूस करता था कि वो बांगे बुलंद दिल के रंज से मिली हुई है और बई हमा कोई दिल आजार और दुरुस्त कलमा मुंह से नहीं निकला था। इसके बाद मैं बहुत देर तक इस्तिग़फ़ार करता रहा और बड़े खुशू और खुजू से नफलें पढ़ी और कुछ सदका भी दिया कि ये दुरुस्ती ज़ौजा पर किसी पिनहानी मासियत इलाही का नतीजा है." Now I'll read the English translation. Huzur stated that as for me, I once addressed my wife in a loud voice, and I felt that my tone was indicative of displeasure, although I had not uttered any harsh words. Yet thereafter, I sought forgiveness from God Almighty for a long time and offered nawafil prayers with great humility, and also gave some sadaqah, because I felt that my harshness towards my wife might have been occasioned by some unconscious weakness in my obedience to God Almighty. So this is the standard which is set before us by the Holy Prophet of Islam and by the promised Messiah ﷺ. And which, if we start following these examples, I'm sure we all will have such blissful and happy married lives, which can be examples for other people who are not Ahmadis to follow. May Allah enable all of us to follow the guidance given in the Quran and Hadith and given by the promised Messiah ﷺ and his successors. Ameen. So after this, after my humble submissions, now we come for our final speech of this program, which is the keynote address. It will be delivered by respected Imam Ataul Mujib Rashid Sahib, who is the missionary in charge, UK. His personality does not need any introduction. We all know him. We grew up actually listening to him and listening to his speeches and his advice. So he will address us now as a keynote speaker, Imam Sahib. Imam Sahib, I think your audio is down.
Right now?
Ji, Imam Sahib, we can hear you now.
Okay. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I would like to say that time is limited. I will have to be very brief. First of all, I want to say that the two presentations so far, I think they were extremely valuable and very concise, to the point, and very rich in their approach, in their meaning. So I would like to thank both the speakers. I think I will have to try to avoid the repetition and say something maybe different. So I have selected certain verses of the Holy Quran and some other quotations which I would like to share. This topic of marriage and how to make it a very happy, enjoyable union of husband and wife, that is very, very important. And I think this is one of those things to which Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, Khamis Sayyidahullah Ta'ala bin Aziz, has been drawing the attention of the member time and again. In his Friday sermons, in his lectures, he is talking on the subject. So we have to be very particular and try to make it. First of all, let me say, so far as I have just noted certain points, the role of the parents in arranging the marriages or selecting the partner for their children. I think this is very, very important. We don't believe in blind arranged marriages. It should be just well thought and well searched out partner which they would propose for their son or daughter. So the role of the parents is, first of all, to pray to God Almighty. For that matter, I would say the word istikhara, that should be well known to the people. People generally feel that istikhara means a prayer. After that, we just wait that next day, or maybe the next day after that, you are going to see a dream. And Allah Almighty will tell you yes or no. Not istikhara is not like that. The word istikhara is different from the word istikhbara. That means to get a precise guidance and a news from somewhere else. That is istikhbara. But istikhara means to seek the goodness. And goodness can be sought from God Almighty. So when a proposal is going on, or just in the very beginning, they have some idea. So the parents and also the boys and girl, they should start praying to God Almighty and praying very, very humbly. And they should not be waiting for, in all cases, to have a dream. Many people are such who pray, but they do not get any dream. So it is not the purpose of istikhara, but only purpose is that Allah Almighty guide them to such a decision which can bring in their life true happiness and joy. So that should be khair. The word khair is important. So that should be remembered by all. So the role of the parent is very important, as I said. They should do the prayer, the istikhara themselves, and also ask the children. They should also do that. And it should be done for quite some time. And then they should hope that Allah Almighty will open up the way for them for the best partner. And that is how it should go there. Then another point in this role of parents, I would say that sometime, unfortunately, it is felt and seen that some parties, they do not disclose if there is any weakness or shortcoming on the one side. they always try to hide that and always try to explore the weakness of other parties. That is totally wrong. And in their own case, they should be honest enough and bold enough to say to the other party that this is a short weakness in our son or in our daughter. But otherwise, the good points are so many. They are very full of prayer, very respectful, very obedient and kind, and so many. Tell them all the good things. But do not forget to mention even a minor weaknesses there that don't highlight too much, but do tell them that all the human beings are human beings. So some shortcoming, some weaknesses may be there. So this is there. So because you just imagine that if you hide the weakness and the marriage goes ahead, after a few months, when that weakness will come to surface, that will, God forbid, end up in the break of marriage. So that should not happen. So the parents should be very honest and telling everything in a moderate way, but also highlighting, of course, all the God-given good qualities in their children. So regarding istikhara and hadith and dua that I have already mentioned, and there are verses of the Holy Quran which should also be kept in mind. There is a verse which says that Ashiruhunna bil maruf, that husbands should treat their wives in a very dignified way, which is the normal standard of a good person. This is the overall advice to, as a matter of fact, applicable to both, although it is addressed to men. Allah Almighty says in one place, Nisaukum harsul lakum, that your ladies, your wives, they are like your field where you sow the seed and get the fruit of that. So through the process of marriage, when husband and wife, they come together and they are blessed with children. Children is like the crop. So the parents are advised that you take your wives in a respectful way and look after much more than a farmer looks after his field. Nisaukum harsul lakum. Through your wives, you are going to get the progeny. So this is again a point. I don't go into the detail. Then Allah Almighty says, this system of marriage which Allah Almighty has established, men and women both get married, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, that a man should get married so that he can get the satisfaction, the desire what Allah Almighty has created and the need Allah Almighty has given him, they are fulfilled, and as a result of that, they are fully satisfied. So this is the purpose, and one should always, to both of them, they should keep that purpose there. And then وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مُوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً, that is also quoted earlier on. That's a beautiful part of the verse, says that always try to create a very good atmosphere within the confine of your family. But try to always overlook the shortcomings and don't be too harsh or too strict in your own opinion or in your desire. There are many families, unfortunately, sometimes we hear just on a petty issue that the food was not ready on time, that ends up in divorce. What a wrong thing this. After all, the wife and men, and the husband, both are human beings. Both can have some shortcomings and weaknesses. So if a small mistake is committed by her or by him at a time, the other party should not get offended so quickly like that. So this is again the muwadda wa rahma, this affectionate treatment and mercy upon others, that should be there. And other things generally have been mentioned. I need not repeat that. I would like to say that as it's mentioned that on the occasion of nikah, pronouncement of marriage, there are verses where Allah Almighty, in no less than 5 times the quality of righteousness, ittaqullah, ittaqullah, that has been repeated. Yesterday I was announcing a nikah in the mosque. So I mentioned this point, but also said that it is not only addressed to the bride and the bridegroom, that they should be righteous, but their parents as well, and the progeny as well. In future, they should all be doing like that. So this taqwa is a very golden principle which can bring lot of love, affection, kindness, and brightness in a family atmosphere. Hazrat Masih Maud has also mentioned several things about that. Taking the subject that what is the purpose of marriage, he has mentioned that I quote one reference particularly, which is, I think, very dear to me. I will see that there are benefits in marriage. This is against that feeling of some people, some youngsters, some ladies. Sometimes they say, what's the need of get married? Because when they see around them, marriages are broken and husband and wife fighting, quarreling, and hurling abuses on one another. When they see that, some of them, they say, no, we are better off without the marriage. That is wrong. Islam has prescribed that when boys and girls, they come of age, they should get married, because this is the normal way of life. And there are so many blessings in that one. Otherwise, the people without marriage, they are very likely to fall in a dip, or in a pit where some very bad consequences could be there. So therefore, the marriage is like a protective shield, both for men and both for the ladies. So marriage should be always, done there. And the celibacy, that is the way of life of some people, that is not right. The Holy Prophet ﷺ has mentioned very categorically about this. He said, "An nikahu min sunnati," that to get the nikah leading to the marriage, that is my tradition, that is my way of life. An nikahu min sunnati faman raghiba an sunnati falaysa minni. The person who goes away from my tradition, my noble example, then he is not having any connection with me. So state of celibacy should never be thought by Ahmadi young boys and girls. To get married is right. Whenever they are grown up, earlier the better. And at the time of the marriage, they should consider what for Allah Almighty has made this system that we should get married. In one place, the promised Messiah ﷺ has mentioned that one purpose of that is to have the children, and one is to have the purity of life. Otherwise, if this relationship is not there, then both boys and girls could end up in some relationship which is not permissible at all. And this is also regarding the chastity of the ladies and the men both, because the state of celibacy is not the Islamic way. Hazrat Masih Maud, he has mentioned in some places that what are the purposes of that. I would like to bring in that one where he has said that what are the benefits of that. One is continuity of human race, then the protection of one's chastity, and to bring joy into your life, and then to have a peaceful family life. And so many other things are there. So the promised Messiah ﷺ has mentioned that this not only gives the satisfaction to both of them, but also they lead to a long link of further generations. Their children, if they are looked after by the parents, they become good people. And good people getting married to good ladies, then again, the chain goes on like that. So the marriage is a very sacred institution according to the teaching of Islam, as compared with those people who do not believe in this institution. So Islam has asked that all of us, all the boys and girls, they should be getting ready to get married as soon as possible. As they come to the age of maturity, they should go for that. The parents have the responsibility to seek the right partner for their children, but not forcefully forcing their choice if the boy is not happy. For example, if they select a girl, and propose that to their son, and the son, for some reason or some investigation or feeling, does not like that. So I think the parents should not be imposing their decision by force on their children. And more so, I think care should be taken in case of ladies, in case of daughters. The daughters sometimes are not vocal. They do not openly tell that I do not like this person to get married. So even in that case, I think the mothers are in so close relationship with the daughter that the mothers can easily find out whether the daughter is absolutely happy with this proposal or not. I think an unacceptable proposal should not be imposed upon the children. Otherwise, one or few days, maybe 1 or 2 months, they may be happy, but ultimately they break up. And then the whole family is at loss and they worry about that. So the subject is very, very detailed and so many things can be said. Just few of them I have mentioned, previous speakers have mentioned. So may Allah enable us that we should study more and more on this very sacred subject and try to be always following the course of righteousness, truthfulness, and always submitting to Allah Almighty and seeking His guidance. Guidance from God Almighty is the essence of the success of the marriage. That is the point where I would like to finish my speech. Jazakallah. Thank you.
Jazakumullah, Imam Sahib. As always, we have always benefited from your wise words. And today again, we were fortunate to listen to you again. There is a request by someone who is watching the program, and I would present it to you as well, because I'm sure there would be some people who do not understand English. So someone has requested if it is possible for Imam Sahib to say at least a few words in Urdu as well. So humble request to just to summarize briefly. I know
अगर किसी की ख्वाहिश है तो मैं कुछ बातें इसके बारे में कह देता हूँ. बात यह है कि सारी बातों को तो दोहराया नहीं जा सकता है, ना ही उनका ख्याल रखा जाता है. तो मैं ये जिक्र करना चाहता था कि अल्लाह ताला ने बनी नौ इंसानों में ख़ास तौर पर ये जो शादी का सिलसिला कायम किया है, ये मज़हब इस्लाम की एक बहुत बड़ी खूबी है. क्योंकि अगर ये सिलसिला ना हो और दुनिया में शादी ब्याह का रिवाज ना हो और इंसान कहे कि मैं शादी के बगैर रहूँगा, औरतें कहें कि हम शादी नहीं कराते, तो वो एक ऐसी बात का इनकार करते हैं जो अल्लाह ताला ने उनकी फितरत में और उनकी तख्लीक में रखी है. क्योंकि शादी का ताल्लुक ये एक ऐसी चीज़ है जो हर मर्द में और हर औरत में है और अल्लाह ताला की पैदा करता है. तो जब अल्लाह ताला ने एक ख्वाहिश को पैदा किया तो यकीनन अल्लाह ताला ने उसकी तस्कीन के सामान की है. और वो सामान इस तरह पर हैं कि इस्लामी तालीम ये है कि जब मर्द और औरत, लड़का या लड़की मैच्योर हो जाएं, वो पुख्ता उम्र को पहुंच जाएं, तो वो शादी के बंधन में अपने आप को बांधें. बाज़ लोग शादी को देर करते हैं, वो भी गलत है. बाज़ बहुत जल्दी शादी करना चाहते हैं, वो भी गलत है. जब बच्चे इस काबिल हो जाएं, इस उम्र को पहुंच जाएं कि अपने अच्छे और बुरे का फैसला कर सकते हों और अपनी जिंदगी को खुशगवार बना सकते हों, उस सूरत में फिर उनको शादी के बंधन में आना चाहिए. ये बात बड़ी लाजमी और ज़रूरी है और इसी के लिए इस्लाम ने रखा है कि बाकायदा गौर व फिक्र के बाद, दुआ के बाद और ख़ास तौर पर इस्तिखारा करने के बाद. इस्तिखारे की मैंने तशरीह बयान की थी कि इस्तिखारे से ये मुराद नहीं है कि इंसान दुआ करे और अगले दिन उसी रात में ख्वाब देखने की ख्वाहिश करे कि अल्लाह ताला मुझे बताएगा कि मैं शादी करूं कि ना करूं. ये नहीं होता. अल्लाह ताला बताना चाहे तो बता दे, लेकिन अगर अल्लाह ताला किसी प्रपोजल के बारे में, किसी तजवीज़ के सिलसिले में दोनों फ्रीकैन के दिल में तसल्ली और तस्कीन पैदा करता है, तो ये भी अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से नेकी की रास्ता बताने का एक तरीक है. तो इसलिए دعا کرنی چاہیے, دل ڈال کر دعا کرنی چاہیے, اور پھر دیکھنا چاہیے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ اس تجویز کو جو ہمارے سامنے ہے اس کو باعث تسکین بناتا ہے یا نہیں. اگر اللہ تعالیٰ کی طرف سے تسکین حاصل ہوتی ہے, لڑکا بھی لڑکی بھی اس کے والدین بھی, تو پھر اللہ تعالیٰ پر پورا توکل کرتے ہوئے انسان کو یہی سمجھنا چاہیے کہ میرے استخارے کا یہی نتیجہ ہے کہ مجھے اللہ تعالیٰ نے اس رستے کی رہنمائی کی ہے. باقی شادی جب ہو جائے تو میاں بیوی کے درمیان بہت ہی محبت اور پیار کا سلوک ہونا چاہیے. ہر ایک کو دوسرے کی خوبیوں پر نظر رکھنی چاہیے, ان کی خرابیوں پر نہیں, اور کوشش کرنی چاہیے کہ خوبیوں پر نظر بھی ہو اور خوبیوں کا ذکر بھی ہو, اس کا اعتراف بھی ہو. بعض آدمی سمجھتے ہیں کہ بیوی تو بہت اچھی ہے, کبھی اس بیوی کو کوئی کلمہ خیر, کوئی کلمہ تعریف نہیں کہا, کبھی اس کی حوصلہ افزائی نہیں کی کہ تم نے یہ کام بڑا اچھا کیا, یہ کیا, تمہاری یہ عادت بڑی پسند ہے, لیکن اپنے لحاظ سے وہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ ہماری تعریف کیوں نہیں ہوتی. تو دونوں کو آپس میں محبت پیار کا ایسا سلسلہ قائم کرنا چاہیے کہ میاں بیوی آپس میں دونوں کے اچھے اخلاق پر نظر رکھیں, اچھی عادات پر نظر رکھیں, ان کو تسلیم کریں, ان کی تعریف کریں, اور اسی طرح اگر خدا نخواستہ کوئی انہیں کمی نظر آئے تو بہت ہی محبت اور پیار کے ساتھ اس کا ذکر بھی کر دیں. اگر میاں بیوی کے درمیان محبت اور پیار کا سلسلہ قائم ہو جائے تو میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ خاوند بھی اور بیوی بھی اس کے اظہار کو اس خاندانی ماحول کے اندر برا نہیں سمجھیں گے. وہ کہیں گے کہ میری بیوی نے یہ بات میرے فائدے کے لیے کی ہے, اور خاوند بھی یہی کہے گا کہ میری بیوی نے یہ کہا, اور اس کا بیوی بھی یہی سمجھے گی کہ خاوند نے اس لیے کہا. تو اس لحاظ سے یہ ماحول پیدا کرنا چاہیے, اور پھر اس کے علاوہ اس مقصد کو مد نظر رکھنا چاہیے کہ جس کے لیے اللہ تعالیٰ نے یہ رشتہ ازدواج قائم کیا ہے اس میں تقویٰ کا بہت بڑا عنصر ہے. تقویٰ وہ چیز ہے جس سے انسان کی شادی, انسان کے معاملات, انسان کے تعلقات, ہر چیز, زندگی کا ایک ایک لمحہ اگر تقویٰ کے سائے میں بسر ہو تو وہ بہترین صورت بنتی ہے انسان کی زندگی کی. اس لیے تقویٰ کا طریق ہمیشہ قائم رکھنا چاہیے, ایک دوسرے کی مدد کرنی چاہیے, اور اچھے سے اچھا رشتہ تلاش کرتے ہوئے اور قرآن مجید کو مد نظر رکھتے ہوئے, جس میں اللہ تعالیٰ نے بے شمار جگہ پر, بڑی جگہ پر قرآن مجید نے اس چیز کو بیان کیا ہے کہ اس رشتے کا تقدس کیا ہے. اس رشتے کے تقدس کو قائم رکھنا اور اس کو بہتر سے بہتر بنانا, اور اس سے خود بھی فائدہ اٹھانا اور اپنے پارٹنر کو بھی فائدہ دینا, یہ اس کی روح بنتی ہے. تو اس لحاظ سے ان ساری باتوں کو میں ان کو دہرا تو نہیں سکتا, لیکن یہ کرتا ہوں کہ رشتے کی تلاش سے لے کر زندگی کے آخری دن تک انسان کو شادی کے بندھن میں بندھے ہوئے ہوتے ہوئے ایسا طریق اختیار کرنا چاہیے کہ ان کا گھر ایک جنت کا گہوارہ بن جائے, جس میں وہ خاوند بیوی سے محبت کرے, بیوی خاوند سے محبت کرے, وہ اس کی مدد کرے, وہ اس کی مدد کرے, اللہ تعالیٰ ان کو بچے دے تو بچے یہ دیکھ کر خوش ہوں کہ ہمارے ماں باپ کے درمیان کتنی محبت اور پیار ہے, اور پھر اس نیک نمونے کو دیکھ کر بچوں کی زندگیاں بھی اسی طرح ببرکت ہو جائیں گی. تو والدین کے لیے یہ کتنی بڑی اچھی بات ہوگی, وہ اگر دیکھیں کہ ان کی زندگی میں بچوں کی شادی ہوتی ہے اور وہ دونوں میاں بیوی بڑے خوش ہیں, تو ماں باپ کی آنکھوں کا تارا بن جاتے ہیں, آنکھوں کی ٹھنڈک کا موجب بنتے ہیں. تو اس لحاظ سے والدین کو اپنے درمیان ایسا تعلق پیدا کرنا چاہیے, تعلق ایسا بنانا چاہیے کہ ان کے بچے ان کو دیکھ کر ان سے سیکھیں, اور اس طرح سیکھیں کہ جو اعلیٰ نمونہ ہمارے والدین نے قائم کیا, ہم بھی آپس میں جب شادی ہوگی تو اسی طرح بلکہ اس سے بھی بڑھ کے نیک نمونہ قائم کریں گے. میرا خیال ہے کچھ نہ کچھ باتیں ہو گئی ہیں, اسی سے اجازت چاہتا ہوں.
جی بالکل, جزاکم اللہ امام صاحب, thank you very much. Imam Sahib, we have only a few minutes left, and we will take one or two questions just to make this program a little interactive. There are a few questions that we have received, but I would suggest, as it was mentioned in the beginning as well by Haider Hamid Sahib, that on Ansarullah website, we have made a good selection available for all the people from the questions which have been answered by Khulafa, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah and Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Sayyidahullah Ta'ala bin Asrail Aziz, particularly with regards to marriage and happy married life. Like, for example, we received a question that from someone, please define Ham Kufuf in context of marriage. Now, this particular question has already been answered in the same section of Ansarullah website in one of the videos which is available there. So I would request all the people who are attending, all the brothers and sisters who are watching the program today, that they should visit the website, Ansarullah website, www.ansar.org.uk/Rishta Nata. Imam Sahib, would you say a few words? I know it's a very short question, which can be answered very briefly. Just the meaning of Hamkuf if someone wants to know. Okay. Jazakumullah then. I'm sure we should conclude the program. There is one more question. As I said, this question is already answered in our website, so I will leave this question for the time being. One question I would take the views of our Jamia student on that, because this relates to younger generation, and someone has asked a very valid question, and the question is, how can parents keep tabs on their teenage children as they spend nearly 8 hours in schools and colleges where the parents have no control over them? Hazim Sahib, any thoughts on that?
I think my initial thoughts are that, I mean, that's the case with anyone's child. They are going to be even here, or even in all across the society. Our children are at school. That's just the reality, and they do spend the majority of the day with other people and not with the family at home. So I think it's important. So my initial thoughts are, it's important to not, again, find that balance and not being too intrusive, and ask in a way in which you are in a compassionate way to ask how their day was, and to again allow that door to be open for any questions or anything they've heard from school, or anything they've what they've been up to that day at school, or what they've learned in different things, lessons or subjects, or heard from their friends. Just allow that door to be open, and to remove any stigma behind asking these kinds of questions. And I think that if that bridge is built, then it becomes a lot easier to form a relationship with your children, and to find out about what's going on inside their heads, and to resolve any conflicts if there are any, and to answer any questions if there are any.
Jazakallah Hazim Sahib for your thoughts on the question. There is one more question that we have received from someone. If man or woman for some medical reasons are unable to fulfill the rights of each other, in that scenario, should the one who is medically unfit allow his or her partner to marry again? It's a kind of generic question, I mean, kind of very broad question, because there can be different situations for different couples who are in such situation, and one answer cannot comprehensively deal with all those situations, because of course we have witnessed many such occasions where, for example, one partner in a married life became unfit or became unwell because of an accident or some other thing, but they were in such loving relationship that they never left that relationship, and they continued living together. But then again, if someone is medically unfit to fulfill his or her medical to fulfill his or her marital rights and duties, so in that case, of course, there is no harm in offering one's partner partner to go on and marry someone else. But of course, there is that door of divorce which is open for both husband and wife in such cases. So as I said, it is a broad question and there can be many different situations. And one answer cannot comprehensively deal with all those different situations. So I think if there is a particular case, then guidance can be sought from Hazur Anwar Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz in the first place, or then your local missionaries or your local office bearers can also guide in confidentiality in such matters. So they can be consulted. So I think time is now 6:30, and this brings us to the time when we end our program. It has been an hour to be part of this wonderful event today, and on behalf of Majlis Ansarullah, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all those who attended the event today. And I would also like to thank everyone who helped in the organization of this event, particularly Qaid Sahib Amumi, Muhammad Mahmood Khan Sahib, who was instrumental in the organization, and also the IT team of Majlis Ansarullah, who has arranged the program to be streamed on YouTube. And then, of course, I would like to thank those who participated in the program today, like our speaker from Jamia, Hazim Arif Sahib, for sharing his thoughts on an important topic. And last but not the least, respected Imam Sahib for sparing his time from his busy schedule. Allah bless you all, Ameen. And I think Imam Sahib has left, so I thought I would request Imam Sahib in the end to lead us in silent prayer. But then I would request you all to join me in silent prayer then. Silent prayer. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.